Good evening, and welcome to Bear News 101. I'm Kelsey O'Hara. Today I'm here with Interim Provost and Chief Academic Officer Lisa Vollendorf. Vollendorf started here at the University of Northern Colorado, July 1st, 2021. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll just jump right into it. What do you do here as the Provost, and what do you like most about your job?
Well, what I do is what I like most about my job. So I am the Chief Academic Officer of the institution and the Vice President of Academic Affairs. So everything academic at the institution falls under my purview, as they say, and I just love getting up every day and coming to work and helping UNC serve its students, faculty, and staff to the best of our ability.
So as someone who has worked in higher education for a while, what kind of things do you think the university and higher education as a whole do to help both students and its community?
So I have worked in public higher education for 26 years now, and what I think is the most amazing aspect of the work that we do every day is we are the key drivers of social mobility in this country. And UNC in particular is in a very unique situation in the state of Colorado because UNC moves more students into higher social classes than any other institution in the state. This is something we pride ourselves on, and this is incredibly important work for you, for your family, for our communities. So I love that that's what public higher education does in the United States.
Oh, that's really impressive. As a UNC student myself, I didn't know a lot of that. It's really interesting. So you said you had 26 years of experience. How do you think those experiences will help you here at UNC?
So I feel very privileged. I've had an incredible career in public higher education. I've been a professor of Spanish. I have been a department chair of languages. I have been a Senate chair of the Faculty Senate. I've been a dean of humanities and the arts. I've been a provost before, which helps when you do the job again. And I've also worked in support of emergency and crisis management in the California State University. So I have a broad array of experiences in public higher education that really helped me when I got here on July 1st, 2021, to hit the ground running and to really have a good framework for what I was hearing and what people were saying were our goals and our aspirations, but also what the things were that we needed to put in place to be able to move forward together.
And with all of that experience and then deciding to kind of end up at UNC, what drew you here in the first place?
So that's an interesting question. I worked for President Feinstein at San Jose State University when I was a dean and he was a provost. And I left to become a provost at Sonoma State, and subsequently he came to UNC. And he called me last June 2021, and asked me what I might be doing next year. And I thought it was a little bit of a curious question because, usually we just talk about work or how's your family. And he said that he was looking to fill his interim provost position because the former provost decided to retire. And I asked my husband if he'd be willing to move to Colorado, and we moved here 3 weeks later.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that that kind of shows the impact that UNC's community can have on each other. And it really draws in people from other places. That's really cool.
And I feel very lucky too because Andy Feinstein knew I grew up in Colorado, so it's the first time in my life that I've lived in the same state where most of my family lives.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you're able to do that.
It's really nice, and it's very much, as you say, about connectivity and the networks that we build over our careers and the power, frankly, of those of us who really care deeply about public higher ed to be able to draw each other in to do the work when it's needed.
For sure, that's awesome. So kind of moving through your career, now that you're here at UNC, UNC is a student-first university. So what does that mean to you?
So that was one of the reasons that I said yes to President Feinstein, because I believe that all universities should be students first, but not all universities really have that as an express priority. And to me, it means that we have the opportunity every day to really focus on the students we serve, and also on our prospective students. So thinking about who we want to serve, what kind of programs we should have and want to have to attract tomorrow's students here while we serve the students of today. So in the fall, as part of our Students First priority, in collaboration with my colleagues on the cabinet, on the president's cabinet, we launched a Students First framework to really bring a strategic structure to our goal of being a Students First university. So we have a lot of people from across the institution now working on committees and task forces and working in conjunction with the leadership to be very focused on graduation and retention rates, on eliminating all equity gaps, so every student at UNC has the same opportunity to succeed, regardless of where he or she or they come from and what their educational background is or was, and their race and ethnicity and their Pell eligibility and their first-gen status. My belief is Students First means you meet every student where they are and you give them all the exact same chance to be successful.
That's awesome. And that leads really well into my next question. So you have a master's degree in Spanish and Latin American literature. And one of the things that UNC is doing to kind of, like you said, meet students where they are is become a Hispanic serving university. So can you kind of elaborate on what that means and how we can, as a community, reach that goal?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked about becoming Hispanic serving institution. To me, this is a critically important strategic goal for UNC, but more than a strategic goal, it's a cultural goal. We have currently 24% of our undergraduate population are Latino, Latina, Latinx students, and 25% is the threshold to become an officially designated HSI is the term that we use. And I think that the work that we're doing at UNC to prepare our culture to serve all students from diverse backgrounds is critically important for us to seek that designation and to be able to serve first-gen students, students who speak Spanish, students who come from bilingual backgrounds, and students who come from all different backgrounds. So I've worked at HSIs for 20 years now, and what I've seen is that when a university leans in to have HSI as a designation, it means that we want to be Hispanic serving in the sense that we want to be truly in service to our students, not just have the numbers, as it were, in terms of student demographics. So I see more bilingual programming happening already. We're hiring a communication specialist, and I've been asked to look at the writing samples and to do a preliminary interview with the person, not unlike this interview that we're doing, to get a sense of how the person shows up in a media setting. And these are the kinds of things that you do when you want to be a Hispanic serving institution, because you want to be embedded in the community and walk with the community, and we need to have people who are culturally and linguistically prepared to do that work.
Now, it sounds like you've put in a lot of the effort to go towards this, and you also have a lot of experience with that. But I can imagine that starting your job in the middle of a global pandemic wasn't easy. So how did that kind of change what you've been doing?
So I've spent a lot of time with my husband over the past 2 years, as I'm sure other people have spent time with their family members, more than probably we ever bargained for. It influenced me when I came to Weld County in July of 2021, insofar as many of the things that we would have been doing to get to know the community were really not available to us in the same way they will be, I'll say optimistically, after the pandemic is over. So it has meant that relationship building and getting to know our students and our faculty and our staff has been more challenging, but it's not any more challenging than anybody else has experienced during the pandemic. I just feel very privileged that we're able to be open at UNC, to be having classes and in-person experiences like this, and really that everybody's doing their best together in service to our community, so that we can, in fact, continue to hold university classes and have a university experience as close to normal as we can.
Yeah. And you mentioned how privileged we are to be able to be here and have classes in person. So what kind of factors have there been that have let us do that, especially this semester?
So COVID management is a big part of any academic leader's job and has been for the, since the pandemic started. I would say that one thing I really am appreciative of at UNC is that early on we leaned into requiring vaccinations, we leaned into a mask policy that was sensible for our students, faculty, and staff, and we have really encouraged people to think in terms of the whole community and the privilege, as you say, that we have in being here in person. But we do have groups that meet every week, numerous, to talk about what we're hearing, what the issues are, and we're trying to be as responsive as we can. So COVID does take up many hours a week of my time, which I hope means it takes up less hours of other people's weeks so people can focus on their studies and on teaching and learning, on our core enterprise, as they say.
Mm-hmm. And for students who are impacted by COVID, whether it's they have an exposure or someone else in their class does, or they're waiting for test results, what kind of things are you doing as a university to help support those students?
So we've learned a lot about what students need in this entire time. So over these past few semesters, we've learned that the more classes that were scheduled to be in person originally, the more classes are taught remote because of impacts on faculty, the more students seek in-person tutoring and support services. So I only learned that recently because our fall data were showing peaks and dips, and the peaks for in-person requests for tutoring and support services, advising and whatnot, were happening when there were a lot of classes that had to pivot to be remote temporarily. So part of what we're learning is that people need different kinds of support depending on how they're impacted. And we've also really ramped up our ability to train faculty and help faculty in this time of more remote and online teaching. So the trainings that are available in the professional development are leaps and bounds beyond what they were even 2 years ago because of COVID. And I think it's helped us learn to integrate technology more effectively. And it's also helped all of us learn to learn remotely and learn to build relationships remotely. And those are hard things to do. So in some ways, I think all of us have built a deeper skill set than we probably ever wanted to, but now that we have it, I think it will help us going forward.
Mm-hmm. And it certainly sounds like you've done a lot of work with the Hispanic community, with COVID, and a lot of other things to kind of move UNC towards that, the goals that you have for our community. So I'll leave you with just one last question. What does the UNC community mean to you?
UNC is such an incredibly special institution. We attract people who love the institution, who have a love of place, and who have a real commitment, not just to the UNC of today, but to really building a better university for students and for the decades to come. So to me, UNC is very much about a sense of place, a sense of community, and a love of the bear.
That makes a lot of sense. And we're very glad as well to have you in our community. And thank you so much for joining us on Bear News One-on-Ones.
Thank you so much.
I'm Kelsey O'Hara, and thank you for joining us this evening.